Why are so many Greeks leaving the land of ancient beauty and breathtaking islands? Behind Greece's postcard-perfect image lies a harsh reality of skyrocketing rents, low wages, and a massive brain drain. What if the country millions visit to escape their problems is actually a place people are desperate to escape from? Let's uncover the untold story of why living in Greece is next to impossible. The hidden cost of Greece's tourism boom. How can a country that sees millions flocking to its shores every year also be home to people struggling to make ends meet? On the surface, Greece appears to be thriving. Tourism accounts for around 25% of the country's GDP, making it one of the most tourism-dependent economies in Europe. But behind the glossy ads of sunlit beaches and ancient ruins lies a harsh reality for many locals. Greece's economy might lean heavily on tourism, but for residents, this dependency has created more problems than it's solved. Let's start with the jobs that tourism creates. From hotel staff to tour guides, it's true that the industry is a major employer in Greece. But dig a little deeper, and you'll see the cracks. Most of these jobs are seasonal, meaning workers only bring in income during the summer months when tourists flood the islands and cities. It's a race against time to earn enough to cover expenses for the year, but even in peak season, many workers face extremely low wages. A hotel cleaner in a popular tourist destination might earn the equivalent of just €700 a month, far below what's needed to live comfortably in Greece's increasingly expensive cities. By the time winter arrives, unemployment spikes, and these same workers are left scrambling to make ends meet until the next tourist season begins. At the same time, the cost of living has skyrocketed in areas popular with tourists. The demand for goods and services during the high season inflates prices. Basic groceries, restaurant meals, and even utilities can cost far more than they do in less tourist-heavy regions. For locals, this means paying tourist prices year-round. Rent, in particular, is a growing burden. In an area like Santorini or Mykonos, where entire neighborhoods are devoted to vacation rentals, locals find themselves priced out of their own homes. Thousands of Greek workers, many of whom are involved directly or indirectly in tourism, find themselves in the same position, barely scraping by in an industry that appears, on the surface, to be booming. All this raises a difficult question. Where is all the money going? Tourism might add billions to Greece's overall economy, but most of the wealth doesn't reach the average citizen. Large hotel chains, luxury resort developers, and international airlines dominate the sector, taking a significant portion of profits out of the country. Small business owners, local workers, and small-scale farmers, the people who once formed the backbone of Greece's economy, struggle to compete. Tourism has created a situation where a few benefit enormously, while the majority must weather the economic instability it leaves behind. This dependence on tourism also makes Greece vulnerable to forces beyond its control. A bad year, caused by anything from international travel restrictions to natural disasters, can send shockwaves through the economy. The global financial crisis and, more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic made it painfully clear how fragile this reliance is. During the pandemic, tourism virtually disappeared, and Greece's economy contracted under the weight of job losses and reduced spending. The fallout wasn't just economic, it reshaped the lives of countless Greeks who had come to rely on this industry to survive. Tourism in Greece, while significant on paper, has distorted the economy into one built on short-term gains. Instead of diversifying, the government and businesses have doubled down on expanding tourism at the expense of more sustainable industries. Farming, manufacturing, and tech, all sectors that could provide stable, year-round employment, have become less of a focus. This narrow economic base means that when tourism struggles, the entire country feels the impact. And here's the most troubling part. Even when the tourists come, locals often lose. Entire communities have been transformed into playgrounds designed for visitors, leaving little room for the people who live there. Local families are vacating neighborhoods that have been their home for generations, unable to compete with luxury developments and vacation rental properties. Places that were once defined by their culture, traditions, and sense of community are now dominated by tourists, shops, and overpriced cafes. This brings us to a larger issue. Tourism is just one piece of the puzzle when understanding why living in Greece is becoming so difficult. A closer look reveals a housing market that has spiraled out of control, adding to the stresses created by this economic model. It's not enough to say that tourism has made life harder for locals. The ripple effects extend far beyond lost jobs or rising prices. As we'll explore next, the changes to Greece's housing market reveal these issues in even starker terms. How Greece's housing market became a crisis. Why are Greeks being forced out of their own homes, even as foreign investors flood the market? In recent years, Greece's housing market has undergone a dramatic transformation, particularly in cities like Athens. For locals, though, it hasn't been a positive change. Property prices have skyrocketed, rising nearly 70% nationwide since 2017 and an astonishing 88% in the capital, far outpacing what most Greek families can afford. The issue isn't just that housing costs are soaring, but that wages have stayed stagnant, leaving many residents struggling to keep up. What should be a fundamental right, affordable housing, is slipping further out of reach. One of the biggest culprits behind this crisis is the explosion of short-term rentals like Airbnb. In neighborhoods across Athens and other major cities, properties that were once long-term homes for locals have been turned into tourist rentals. The result? A sharp reduction in the number of apartments available for residents, coupled with soaring rental prices for those that remain. Entire communities are being reshaped overnight. Streets that were once filled with families and local businesses now cater primarily to tourists. This rapid transformation benefits property owners and investors, but has left locals with fewer and fewer options. Take the case of Dimitris and Eleni, a middle-class family who lived in central Athens for nearly 20 years. Their landlord recently decided to convert the building where they rented into short-term tourist apartments, forcing them out. When they looked for a new place nearby, they were shocked to find rents double what they had been paying just a few years earlier. Ultimately, they had no choice but to move to the outskirts of the city, cutting ties with the neighborhood they had called home and significantly increasing their commute times. It's not just short-term rentals squeezing out residents. Foreign investment has also become a major factor in the housing crisis. In 2013, Greece introduced the Golden Visa program as a way to attract money into its economy. The program offers non-EU citizens residency permits in exchange for real estate investments of at least €250,000. While this has brought more than €5.5 billion into the country, it hasn't benefited the average Greek citizen. Instead, it has made housing less accessible. Investors often snap up properties in bulk, converting them into vacation rentals or leaving them vacant while they appreciate. In fact, 94% of homes purchased through the Golden Visa program have been turned into rentals, meaning the income from these properties flows abroad rather than being reinvested locally. For locals, the result is a housing market that feels completely out of reach. 1 in 5 homes in some areas now sits vacant, investor-owned, or reserved for tourists, adding to the scarcity of available housing. The few properties that do go on the market are often priced at levels unattainable for families who still earn modest Greek salaries. With competition so high and supply so limited, many people are being pushed out of Athens and Thessaloniki altogether, forced to relocate to smaller towns or even abroad. Privatization policies and government inaction have only made things worse. After years of economic hardship, Greece sold off its public housing stock and eased restrictions on foreign buyers to stimulate the economy. These moves benefited investors, but they left residents unprotected. By the time measures were introduced to address the crisis, such as limiting new short-term rental licenses in central Athens or raising the golden visa threshold in high-demand areas, the damage had already been done. For many Greeks, these policies felt too little, too late. The housing crisis isn't just a story of individual families being displaced, it's reshaping entire communities. Traditional neighborhoods are losing their character as long-time residents leave, and tourist-focused businesses replace local institutions. The social fabric of cities like Athens is fraying. But what happens to a nation when its people, particularly its young, educated residents, feel they have no future at home? This housing crisis is only one piece of a larger puzzle, and its ripple effects are already being felt in unexpected ways. As Greece struggles to provide for its citizens, even its brightest minds are beginning to depart, robbing the country of the people who have the potential to turn things around. The brain drain: why Greece is losing its brightest minds. What happens when a country's most talented people feel they have no choice but to leave? This is a question Greece has been grappling with for years, as hundreds of thousands of young, educated citizens pack their bags in search of better opportunities abroad. Known as brain drain, this phenomenon has reached alarming levels in Greece, with over 500,000 people leaving since 2009. These are doctors, engineers, teachers, and entrepreneurs. The very individuals Greece has invested in through education, only to see them take their skills elsewhere. What's driving them away? The economic struggles Greece has faced over the past decade are at the heart of this issue. After the financial crisis that began in 2008, the country was plunged into a prolonged recession, followed by harsh austerity measures. While some sectors have shown signs of recovery, the job market hasn't kept up. For young professionals, opportunities to find meaningful, well-paying work are scarce. Unemployment rates for Greeks under 25 have consistently been among the highest in Europe, with recent estimates hovering around 23%. For those who do manage to secure a job, wages are often unlivable. In many professions, pay barely covers the basics. Engineers, for example, might earn just €800 a month starting out, an amount that doesn't come close to matching the growing cost of living. It's not just the wages. Career growth in Greece also feels stagnant. Innovation is stifled, and many industries show little room for advancement. For highly skilled workers, this can make staying in the country feel like a dead end. The allure of countries offering competitive salaries, state-of-the-art facilities, and clear career trajectories pulls these individuals away. Germany, the UK, and the United States have become popular destinations for Greece's best and brightest, with many citing the lack of opportunities back home as the reason for their departure. The impact of this brain drain isn't just felt in economic data, it's deeply personal. Take Katerina, for instance, a 32-year-old physician from Thessaloniki. After years of education and training, she found herself working grueling hours in underfunded hospitals for barely enough to cover her bills. When offered a position at a well-equipped hospital in Berlin with a salary triple what she earned in Greece, she didn't hesitate. But leaving wasn't easy. She talks about how hard it was to say goodbye to her parents and friends, to leave behind the language, culture, and way of life she loved. "I didn't want to leave," she said, "but staying felt impossible." This brain drain is reshaping Greece, both demographically and socially. The country's birth rate has plummeted to roughly 1.3 children per woman, far below the population replacement level of 2.1. With more young people choosing to leave or delaying starting families for financial reasons, the population is aging rapidly. Currently, more than 20% of Greece's residents are over the age of 65, a figure that continues to grow. This creates a troubling financial spiral. Fewer workers to drive the economy and contribute to state-funded pensions, paired with an increasing need for healthcare and social services for the elderly. Economically, the loss of skilled workers is devastating. These aren't just numbers. Every doctor, engineer, or teacher that leaves represents lost potential. Greece misses out on the innovation, expertise, and entrepreneurship needed to modernize its economy. The country has an abundance of talent, but no way to keep it. Without these individuals, progress stalls and entire fields risk falling behind global standards. For a nation hoping to compete in sectors like technology or education, this loss is particularly damaging. The brain drain also has a psychological toll. There's a growing sense of disillusionment among Greeks who feel trapped by circumstances. Many talk about the betrayal of working hard, earning degrees, and contributing to society, only to feel abandoned by a system that offers nothing in return. This sentiment isn't helped by the perception that Greece prioritizes foreign investors and bailouts over its citizens. The austerity measures imposed during the financial crisis, which included cutting public services and selling national assets, left scars that haven't healed. For young people, this created an environment where staying often feels like sacrificing their future. Some argue that brain drain weakens the possibility of recovery because it strips Greece of the very individuals who could bring change, teachers who could reform outdated education practices, engineers who could lead infrastructure projects, and entrepreneurs who might spark new industries are gone, often permanently. Without them, rebuilding feels like an uphill battle. This isn't just about losing talent today, it's about the long-term sustainability of Greece's economy and society. What's most alarming is that this exodus shows no signs of slowing down. For every Katerina who leaves, there's another story of a young professional ready to follow. Economic policies that left Greeks behind. Could the very measures meant to save Greece actually be making things worse? In the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, Greece was forced to adopt a series of extreme austerity policies in exchange for bailout packages from the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. These policies were touted as essential steps to reduce government debt, but their implementation left a devastating mark on the country. One of the central pillars of this recovery plan was widespread cuts to public services. Healthcare, for example, saw its budget reduced by a staggering 25% almost overnight. Hospitals across the country struggled with shortages of staff, medical supplies, and even basic equipment. Citizens suddenly found themselves waiting months for critical procedures or travelling long distances to access care. For those who relied on public services to meet essential needs, what had been challenging before the crisis became practically unbearable. Alongside healthcare cuts, the government laid off 1 in 4 public sector workers, while those who kept their jobs had their wages slashed by up to 30%. The message was clear. Citizens were being tasked with bearing the full brunt of the recovery effort. Ordinary Greeks, many of whom had already lost their jobs or seen their earnings collapse, were now being asked to contribute even more. For many, the measures gave the impression that the government's priority wasn't protecting its people, but following the strict dictates of international creditors, whatever the cost may be. While sharp spending cuts were crippling public institutions, the push toward privatization was transforming the face of Greece. Public backlash to these sales was fierce. Many young people decided they were better off starting over abroad, fueling the brain drain that has drained Greece of much of its potential for growth and innovation. This toxic loop continues to hurt Greece. Economic stagnation, high emigration rates, and growing frustration among those who remain have created a society teetering between resilience and resignation. If the country cannot shift its priorities toward rebuilding trust and investing in its people, the risks extend far beyond economics. What kind of future can Greece expect when its citizens no longer believe they have a stake in their own country? This is a question that becomes harder to answer with each passing year. Greece's struggles show what happens when short-term economic fixes take priority over long-term stability. The focus on tourism created seasonal, low-paying jobs while pricing locals out of their neighbourhoods. Meanwhile, the Golden Visa program and unchecked foreign investment benefited investors but left housing unaffordable for Greeks. These policies widened inequality, turning economic growth into something that only served a select few. Other nations should take heed. Prioritizing citizens' well-being and equitable development is vital to economic resilience. Because at the heart of Greece's crisis is a stark reminder. In Greece today, many tourists live better than the citizens themselves. Change must start now.